Here are the materials that you're going to need to make this display. I've got 34-inch numbers in rose gold, and I also like to buy a couple of spares of each number just to make sure that if anything untoward happens, I've got some spares. You're going to need a selection of 260s and a few 160s. These are just to tie off and secure things, but I've got a few rose gold 260s, reflex or chrome gold, mauve 260 or pink 260 chrome or reflex, and rose gold chrome or reflex 260, and the ordinary rose gold 260s. I've got these lovely pastel pink anagram 17-inch crescents, which I really like. For the base, we're going to be using 12 rose gold 11-inch rounds. We've also got 5 pale pink 11-inch rounds, and then I've got a selection of 5-inch rounds. So I've got 25 rose gold, 25 pale pink. I've got 15 chrome or reflex gold. I've got 25 rosewood. That's a really lovely colour. And then I've got 12 each of chrome or reflex mauve or pink, or chrome or reflex rose gold. I'm using 12 11-inch rounds in rose gold for the base, and I'm just going to double stuff the first layer. And I do this because if the base is going to go on the floor, this just makes it a little bit sturdier, a little bit more durable. So it's worth the effort. Very quick to do, just using a chopstick. Inflate your double stuffed layer to 9 inches, and on this machine I've programmed it to 1.4 for 9 inches double stuffed. With this machine you have to be careful that you put the nozzles onto the balloons at the same point. There is a little ridge here and you just need to go down to that ridge and then press. Take those necks and wrap around. And then just take your duplets and wrap one around the other. Okay? Next, inflate the unstuffed layer to 9 inches, and I'm just going to reduce my setting to 1.1 because you don't need as much force to inflate an unstuffed balloon. So you will need to calibrate the machine yourself. Make another one of those, and then just make that into a cluster of 4. Put the 2 clusters together and take one of the necks and just pull that through into the base and wrap around a few times. So we're making sure that our double cluster is on the bottom, our double stuffed cluster. Then take your heavy sand weight, and I've just tied a 350 into that inner neck. So check out the video if you don't know how to make heavy sand weights, and just pull that into the bottom layer through to the top. And you can use that 350 to wrap around, and you can also use the neck. Okay, and you've got a really secure base. To inflate the number balloons, I'm using a hand pump. So you are looking for this little disc here. This is the valve, and that's where we inflate. So I'm inflating with air. If you were inflating with helium, you would put your helium regulator in here and just inflate. Okay, you need to slow down as the balloon starts to fill up, because it is very easy to overdo this and overinflate, and if you do that you will pop the balloon. So the balloon here is feeling a little bit soft, so I'm going to put a little bit more air in. Okay, so the balloon feels nice and firm, and if I walk my fingers around the creases here at this point, this corner, everything pings back into place. As soon as I've inflated the balloon, I put it into one of these party bags. That will just help protect it and keep it clear of any lint or fibres. I'm going to create an attachment point at the base of the number 4 using a 260. So the valve on this balloon is actually at the top. I would normally use the valve because it's longer, and I would normally create the attachment point there. But with this balloon, it is at the bottom. So I'm just going to use this little tab here. I'm not going through the hole. That is quite a weak point, but I'm taking my 260, placing it over the tab, and then wrapping the 260 around that tab. So tying this up as you would a bubble balloon, if you're familiar with bubble balloons or bobos. Just tie around a couple of times each way and then tie those ends into a knot. Okay, and having tied once, you can tie a second time. Okay, so you've got your attachment point there. To attach the number 4 to the base, just pull the tails of that 260 into the base and wrap around a few times, just in a figure of 8 motion. So you're going through to the bottom layer, wrapping round. You come back up to the top layer if you want, and do that with both of the tails, just to secure that. I'm now going to put little sections of the T-Rex tape along this line here so we can stick the balloons together. And I'll leave links in the description below where you can get all the materials you need to make this design, plus all the equipment that I'm using today. And just take your number 1 and stick it on to the number 4. And this T-Rex tape just bonds so quickly. I'm taking a 260 gold, and I'm just going to create a band to help secure the 2 balloons together, and also provide a bit of interest, so a bit of contrast, colour contrast. So I've inflated this balloon almost all the way. There's just a small tip. Just twist off a bubble in the balloon. Take it all the way around and can't reach. And then just bring it through to the end. Twist off another bubble at the end and wrap those 2 together. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing with another couple of 260s in chrome pink or reflex pink. It's important that these lie reasonably flat. I'm now going to size the 5-inch round balloons organically to different sizes. So the great thing about this inflator is that I can program each outlet to be independent, so I can inflate a different size on this side to this side. So that's a great feature of this pump, and if you're interested in this pump, I've got a video showing you all the different features, and I go into quite a lot of detail about it and where you can buy it, and I'll leave links in the description below to all of that. I'm now going to build out the base of this display, and I'm starting with an 11-inch round that's very underinflated. That's perhaps 5.5 to 6 inches. I've tied in a 260, and I'm just going to pull this in at the back just to give some support to the number 4. I've got another underinflated 11-inch, and I'm just going to pull that into the base here. I'm now going to use clusters of 4 to extend the base, and I'm using a 260, just wrapping that in, tying that on, pulling that into the base at some point, pulling the other end of the 260 round, and I'll take another cluster of 4 and wrap the other end in there, and then I will just tie that on to one of the necks, okay? And I continue to build the base out in this way. And at this point, I don't worry too much about the exact placement of the balloons. This is about getting a wider base, a bigger base, and then at the later stage, when we've extended the base, then we're going to stand back, have a look at the display and see where the colours need to be placed. So it's at that point that I really start to stand back. So don't worry too much, don't obsess too much about where the balloons are going to be placed. Your placement of the balloons will be different to mine, which means your display will turn out differently. And that's great, because you don't want to have an exact replica of this. You want your own display. By all means, use this as inspiration. But if I were to make this again, I wouldn't make it in exactly the same way. It would turn out slightly differently. And I think that's the great thing about these organic displays. Each one is unique, and that's a great advantage. So don't worry if yours is coming out different. That's how it's meant to be. I've inflated the full crescent with air, and I've tied it off with a 260, and I'm just going to decide on its placement now. I'm just going to make a few flowers to add to this design. So I've got a 260. Which I've inflated with 6 strokes of the Qualatex hand pump. Let a little bit of air out, just to soften the balloon, and then tie, okay? So that's what you've got. And we're just going to make loops of about 4 fingers, okay? And pass that knot and nozzle through the centre of that loop. That's just going to make sure that doesn't come undone. Make another loop of about 4 fingers, just check it against that one. So we want them as close to the same size as possible. Another loop of 4 fingers, just check it. 4th loop. And a 5th loop. and then one more loop. Okay, twist all those loops together so they don't come undone, and then you just need to break off the end or snip off the end if you've got a pair of scissors handy, and then just let the air out. Okay, and then tie a knot and wrap the excess through the centre. So this is what you've got. We just want to position those petals so they're sitting nicely. Okay, so that's what you've got. I've got the tip of a 260 in pink for the centre. And I just want to inflate the tip of it, so I'm rolling the 260 down onto the hand pump, just put a little bit of air in, then twist off a little bubble, let the rest down and tie that in a knot. Okay, so that's what you've got. You can pull that into the centre of our flower. Wrap it around, okay, and then we can use this to attach to this point here. I make a few more flowers to add to the display, and I'm using the T-Rex tape to stick the flowers here. Work your way around the design, just sticking down any little attachment points or valves that are sticking up. So I'm just using clear tape. And if you've enjoyed this video, I think you'll enjoy this one next.